I always knew my sister resented what I'd built. I just never thought she'd drag my daughter into it. For years, I told myself it was normal sibling rivalry. You know, the usual quiet jealousy that simmers under the surface but never fully boils over. So I ignored the little comments, the eye rolls, the backhanded compliments. I kept helping her anyway. That was probably my first mistake. I'm 38 and I'm a senior structural engineer at one of the biggest firms in Chicago. My wife, Claire, is 35 and works as an executive director for a biotech company. We've done well for ourselves. We own a nice 3-bedroom condo downtown. Not some billionaire penthouse nonsense, just the kind of place two people end up with after 15 years of 80-hour workweeks and saying no to vacations. None of it came easy. I grew up outside Detroit in one of those neighborhoods that slowly died after the auto plants shut down. Every other house had plywood over the windows by the time I was in high school. My dad worked at the plant for 23 years before they cut him loose with a severance package so insulting he couldn't even talk about it without getting angry. After that, he bounced from one miserable retail job to another while my mom cleaned houses for people who barely looked at her when they spoke. Watching that changes you. You learn fast that loyalty means nothing to the wrong people. You learn that if you don't make yourself valuable, the world will chew you up and move on. So while everyone else was out screwing around, I stayed after school teaching myself drafting software in the computer lab. I still remember telling my guidance counselor I wanted to be an engineer. He laughed. Actually laughed. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, "That's expensive ambition for a kid like you." Kid like me. That stuck. I worked construction all through college. Slept in an apartment with 3 roommates and a leaking ceiling. Ate ramen so often I still can't stand the smell of it. Every scholarship, every internship, every promotion, I clawed my way toward it. No handouts. No safety net. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Vanessa, always had one. She's 36 now. Divorced. No kids. And if I'm being honest, bitter about both. Even when we were kids, the favoritism was obvious. My mom would take her shopping for new clothes every season while I got whatever still fit from Goodwill. Vanessa got a car for her 16th birthday. I got an old mountain bike when I graduated college, with honors on scholarships I'd busted my ass to earn. When she graduated, my parents rented out an entire restaurant. When I graduated, my mom showed up 40 minutes late and left before dessert. I told myself it didn't matter. That success would be enough. Maybe that was naive. Now my wife and I have a daughter, Emma. She's 14. Smart, artistic, sharper than most adults I know. She notices everything even when she pretends not to. And that's what made this whole thing so much worse. Because despite everything, I never stopped helping my family. When Vanessa's divorce wrecked her finances 4 years ago, I paid her rent for 6 months. When Mom fell behind on her condo fees, I covered them. When Vanessa's car finally died last year, I bought her another one. And before anyone asks, yes, I know how stupid that sounds. At the time, I told myself family helps family. But looking back, I think I was trying to buy love from people who'd already decided I was the villain. I remember the call about the car because I was in the middle of the biggest meeting of my career. We were finalizing structural revisions for a 70-story tower with a nightmare foundation issue. Tens of millions on the line. My phone buzzed 3 times in a row. Vanessa. I stepped out because I thought something was seriously wrong. The second I answered, she was crying. "Oh my God, thank God you picked up." "What happened?" "My car died. Completely dead. I'm stranded." I thought maybe she needed a tow. Maybe help getting home. Instead, she sniffled dramatically and said, "I need 28 grand. I actually thought I'd misheard her. For what? For a new Mazda SUV. I deserve something reliable for once. Not used. Not practical. Brand new. Like this was somehow my responsibility. And somehow, that wasn't even the worst part. That came later. I sent her the money that same afternoon. Yeah, I know. Even typing that now makes me feel like an idiot. I was still standing in the hallway outside that conference room when I wired it over. $28,000. Just like that. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Well, I guess this finally makes us even for all those years Mom favored you." I stared at it for a full minute. Favored me? That would have been funny if it wasn't so completely detached from reality. There was never a universe where I was the favorite. Vanessa had always been the center of gravity in our family. Everything bent toward her. Every holiday, every birthday, every crisis somehow became about her. But somewhere along the way she rewrote history. And I think that revisionist fantasy got worse after she met my wife. Because if Vanessa resented me, she absolutely hated Claire. Not openly. Not in ways that would let me call it out cleanly. She specialized in those polished little digs that sound harmless unless you hear the venom underneath. Last Thanksgiving, Claire wore a new navy blue dress she'd bought for a company event. Vanessa, accidentally, knocked over an entire glass of red wine right down the front of it. She gasped dramatically and pressed both hands to her mouth. "Oh my God, Claire, I'm so sorry," she said. Then she smiled. "Guess I forgot some people can just replace expensive clothes whenever they want." Claire froze. Just for a second. Then she smiled politely and said, "It's fine." Because that's who she is. She's calm in ways I'll never be. At Emma's middle school theater performance, Vanessa cornered Claire near the refreshments table and spent 20 straight minutes explaining how studies show children of career-driven mothers struggle emotionally. Claire told me about it later while washing dishes. She said it casually like she was mentioning the weather. But I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. And I hated that I'd made her normalize it. Then there was the condo remodel. We'd finally saved enough to renovate the kitchen and open up the living space. Vanessa walked in, looked around, and said, "Wow, must be nice playing Pinterest family while the rest of us live in the real world." Claire laughed it off. I laughed too. That was probably my second mistake. I kept pretending these weren't attacks because acknowledging them would have forced me to do something about it. And if I'm being brutally honest, I didn't want the confrontation. Claire deserved better than that. She always has. We met 12 years ago when her company hired my firm to help design a new research facility outside Chicago. Most executives sent vague, useless emails and expected miracles. Claire showed up with organized notes, practical ideas, and actual respect for the engineers doing the work. No ego. No games. No fake corporate nonsense. The first time we stayed late reviewing blueprints, she looked at one of my proposed structural revisions and said, "You're annoyingly good at this." I said, "You're not bad yourself." She rolled her eyes. And that was basically it. We've been a team ever since. Which is probably why Vanessa hates her so much. Claire has everything Vanessa thinks she was supposed to have. A successful career. A stable marriage. A daughter who actually likes being around her. And unlike Vanessa, Claire built all of it without blaming the world for every setback. Looking back, I should have realized something was off last week. Vanessa asked me to meet for coffee, which was unusual enough. Then she started asking questions. Specific ones. Too specific. What time does Emma's birthday start? Who's coming? What kind of gifts are you getting her? How many people will be at your place? Even stranger, she asked about my recent projects and whether my bonus had come through yet. I remember laughing and saying, "Since when do you care about structural engineering?" She smiled too fast. Just making conversation. I believed her. Because apparently I'm an idiot in multiple currencies. The day before Emma's birthday was chaos. Claire was organizing decorations while I hauled furniture around the living room and tried not to knock over anything expensive. Emma hovered nearby pretending she wasn't excited, which is exactly how 14-year-olds show excitement. At one point she looked up from arranging gift bags and asked, "Did you seriously invite Aunt Vanessa?" I paused. "Yeah. She's family." Emma gave me that look teenagers have mastered, the one that says you cannot actually be this clueless. "She's always mean to Mom." I sighed. She has her own issues. That was my automatic response. The one I'd been using for years. Emma crossed her arms. That doesn't make it okay. That hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. I just didn't want to hear it from my kid. Finally I said, "Just be polite, okay? We'll get through dinner and that'll be it." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't buying it. Honestly, I wasn't either. Emma has always noticed things adults think they're hiding. When she was 9, Vanessa made some snarky comment about Claire's parenting during Christmas dinner at my mom's house. Emma quietly slipped her hand into Claire's under the table. Later that night she asked me, "Why doesn't Aunt Vanessa like us?" I told her she was imagining things. Another lie I regret. Then, the night before the party, my mom called. The second I answered, she said, "I hear this birthday party is pretty extravagant." Her tone had that familiar edge. The one that meant criticism was coming. And something about the way she said it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Because suddenly, for the first time, it felt like they were planning something. And I had no idea what it was. That familiar judgment in my mother's voice made my stomach tighten. "It's not extravagant, Mom," I said. "It's a normal birthday party for a 14-year-old. There was a pause. Then she gave that dry little laugh she always used when she was about to make you feel guilty. "Well, not all of us can afford your version of normal." Same script. Different day. I changed the subject and asked if she needed a ride. She said no, hung up quickly, and left that weird heaviness in the room. Claire noticed immediately. Your mom again? I nodded. Same old thing. She and Vanessa will be here tomorrow. Claire gave me a small smile. I'll be on my best behavior if they are. That was Claire. Always diplomatic. Always willing to extend grace people hadn't earned. I leaned over and kissed her forehead. That's the spirit. Then I said the stupidest thing I'd said all week. How bad could it be? It's just one afternoon. Even as the words left my mouth, something felt wrong. You ever inspect something that technically passes every test, every stress load, every calculation, and still know deep down that one more push will make it collapse? That's what it felt like. At work, I trust that instinct. At home, apparently, I ignore it. The night before the party, I walked through the condo checking every detail like I was preparing for a site inspection. Decorations hung. Food confirmed. Cake order finalized. Gift bags lined up. Meanwhile, Claire was on the phone with the bakery making some last-minute adjustment to the frosting, and Emma was upstairs texting her friends, trying to act casually excited in that very specific teenage way. Everything looked fine. Too fine. Saturday morning came fast. I got up early to pick up the cake. When I got back, Claire had breakfast going, and Emma was helping tape the final decorations along the dining room wall. I slid the cake carefully into the fridge and looked at her. You excited, birthday girl? She tried to play it cool. Maybe a little. I laughed. A little? She grinned. Okay, a lot. That smile made every exhausting hour I'd ever worked worth it. That's the thing about building a life from scratch. People think it's about money. It isn't. It's about moments like that. Being able to give your kid the kind of childhood you never got. That's what all the late nights and sacrifices were for. The morning was perfect. Emma opened our gifts first. A professional drawing tablet she'd wanted for months, a set of ridiculously expensive art supplies Claire insisted she needed, and concert tickets for her favorite band. She looked stunned. Then she launched herself at us and hugged us both so hard I thought she'd crack a rib. This is amazing, she said. And for a while everything felt right. Around noon her friends arrived. A noisy pack of 14-year-old girls carrying gift bags and immediately filling the condo with laughter. They demolished pizza, disappeared into Emma's room, and spent the next hour doing whatever teenage girls do behind closed doors while periodically erupting into hysterical laughter. Honestly, it was kind of great. For a little while I forgot my family was coming. Then 1:58 hit. And right on schedule the doorbell rang. Of course it did. My mother swept in first, dressed like she was headed to an upscale brunch instead of a teenager's birthday party. Vanessa followed close behind. And I immediately noticed she'd gone all out. Perfect makeup. Designer blouse. Hair professionally styled. The whole thing screamed effort. Not for Emma. For Claire. Vanessa always treated these gatherings like competitions no one else agreed to participate in. Happy birthday to my favorite granddaughter, Mom announced loudly. She handed Emma an envelope which almost certainly contained a check for exactly $50. Same amount every year. Not that Emma cared. She smiled politely and thanked her. Vanessa stepped forward next. Happy birthday, Emma. Her voice was stiff, almost mechanical. Then she scanned the room. Not casually. Systematically. The furniture. The artwork. The appliances. The lighting fixtures. Mentally pricing everything the way she always did. Like she was building evidence for some imaginary trial about our financial crimes. One of Emma's friends whispered something and a couple of the girls giggled. Vanessa's eyes snapped toward them. Sure. Annoyed. Then she turned to Claire and gave that fake smile I'd come to hate. This place is cozy. The way she said cozy somehow made our 3-bedroom downtown condo sound like a cramped studio over a laundromat. Claire didn't miss a beat. We love it. Vanessa tilted her head. Still haven't redone the kitchen? Claire smiled. Haven't needed to. It works perfectly for us. A tiny thing. But I saw Vanessa's jaw tighten. Score 1 for Claire. We all moved into the living room where Emma's friends were gathered around the coffee table opening gifts. Vanessa lingered near the back watching. Too quiet. Too focused. And suddenly that feeling came back. That structural warning in my gut. The one that says failure isn't possible anymore. It's already started. I just didn't know yet how bad it was about to get. After a few minutes of painfully awkward small talk, Claire announced it was time for cake. Everyone gathered around the dining table while Emma's friends crowded in with their phones ready, already planning whatever birthday clips 14-year-olds post these days. For a little while, everything felt normal again. We sang. Emma rolled her eyes through the whole thing but smiled anyway. Claire cut the cake and the girls immediately started arguing over who got the biggest slice. Even Vanessa managed to fake a pleasant expression. For a second I thought maybe I'd been paranoid. Maybe this would actually be fine. Then presents started. Emma opened gifts from her friends first. Art books, sketch markers, some handmade cards, a hoodie she'd wanted. She laughed and thanked everyone, completely relaxed. And then Vanessa stepped forward. She was holding a small silver box wrapped perfectly in expensive paper. Too perfectly. Something about the way she held it made my stomach tighten. "This one's from me and Grandma," she said, smiling too wide. "We picked it out just for you." There was an excitement in her voice that felt off, like she was waiting for something. Emma reached for it, and before I could stop myself I said, "Where'd you get that?" Vanessa blinked. The question clearly caught her off guard. Some boutique downtown." She recovered fast and forced a laugh. "Why?" I shrugged, trying not to make a scene in front of Emma's friends. "No reason." But suddenly that feeling was back. That structural instinct. The one that tells you something is wrong even when the numbers say otherwise. Emma untied the ribbon carefully. She always opened gifts like they mattered even when they didn't. Inside was a velvet jewelry box. She smiled. "Oh wow, this is gorgeous." She opened it. Inside was a delicate silver charm bracelet. It looked expensive, elegant, totally harmless. Claire smiled politely. "That's thoughtful." Vanessa practically vibrated with anticipation. Emma slipped it onto her wrist. And that's when everything changed. 1 second she was smiling. The next her face went blank. Her pupils widened so fast it looked unnatural. Her hand jerked violently. Then both arms started shaking. "Emma?" Claire said, instantly alert. No response. The color drained from Emma's face. Her lips turned pale, then bluish. Her entire body locked rigid. And then I saw it. A tiny pulse of light. Barely visible. Blinking from one of the bracelet charms. Once. Twice. Then faster. My stomach dropped. Emma collapsed. Claire screamed and lunged for her, catching her before her head hit the hardwood. Emma's body convulsed violently against the floor. One of her friends shrieked. Another started crying. The whole room exploded into panic. I was already pulling out my phone. 911, what's your emergency?" "My daughter's having a seizure," I said, forcing my voice steady. "She's 14, active convulsions, breathing is shallow but present. We need an ambulance now." Years of engineering crisis management kicked in automatically. Assess. Catalog. Stay functional. The seizure had started approximately 15 seconds earlier. Convulsions rhythmic. Respiration irregular. Skin pale, cyanosis around the lips. I rattled off details while Claire held Emma's head and begged her to stay with us. Emma's friends were crying openly now. One of them knelt beside Claire, helping keep Emma stable. And then, over all the chaos, I heard my mother laugh. Not loudly. Just a soft, breathy little chuckle. I looked up. She had one hand over her mouth like she was pretending concern. But her eyes, cold, almost amused. Beside her, Vanessa tilted her head and said quietly, "Well, not such a perfect little life now, huh?" For a second, my brain refused to process what I'd heard. My daughter was seizing on the floor, possibly dying. And they looked satisfied. Claire was too focused on Emma to hear it. Thank God. Because I don't know what she would have done. Or what I would have done. Then instinct took over. While still on the phone with dispatch, I grabbed the bracelet and yanked it off Emma's wrist. The second it was in my hand, I knew. This wasn't normal jewelry. Embedded inside one of the larger charms was a tiny precision-cut housing. Industrial grade. Too clean to be decorative. And inside it, a micro-LED. Flashing. Almost invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. But I work with technical hardware every day. I know manufactured circuitry when I see it. This was a device. Not an accessory. A weapon disguised as jewelry. The paramedics arrived fast. Faster than I thought possible. They rushed in, assessed Emma, administered emergency medication, and loaded her onto a stretcher. One of them looked at us grimly. "She's unstable. We need to move now." Claire climbed into the ambulance with Emma. I followed in my car, running 2 red lights and barely remembering the drive. But before I left, I looked back through the condo window. Vanessa and my mother were standing there side by side. Watching. Not scared. Not crying. Not shocked. Watching. And smiling. That's when I knew. This wasn't an accident. This had been planned. I handed the bracelet to the ER staff the second we got there. A nurse sealed it in an evidence bag and immediately took it to one of the attending physicians. Even then, I knew. This wasn't random. One of Emma's friends had come with us in the ambulance. Her parents arrived a little later, pale and panicked, and quietly took her home. The rest of the girls had already been picked up from our condo. Emma's birthday was officially over. Just like that. 1 minute she'd been opening presents. The next, she was unconscious in an emergency room. Claire sat beside me in the hallway, staring blankly at the floor. I couldn't sit still. So I did what I always do when things spiral out of control. I researched. I pulled out my phone and started digging through medical journals and hospital resources, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. That's when I found it. Photosensitive epilepsy. Seizures triggered by specific patterns of flashing light. I kept reading. And the more I read, the colder I got. Certain frequencies, usually between 5 and 30 flashes per second, can trigger severe neurological reactions in susceptible people. The exact range depends on the individual. But the pulsing light I'd seen? Fit perfectly. That bracelet hadn't malfunctioned. It had been engineered to do exactly what it did. An hour later, Vanessa and my mother showed up. And the first thing I noticed was how calm they looked. Not devastated. Not frantic. Not terrified the way normal people would be if their niece or granddaughter had just been rushed into emergency treatment. Calm. Controlled. Almost patient. How is she? Vanessa asked. The concern in her voice sounded rehearsed. Like she'd practiced it in the mirror. They're still examining her, I said, coldly. She stepped toward Claire like she meant to sit beside her. I moved between them. Don't. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me? Keep your distance. Her face hardened instantly. We're family. That fake wounded tone. The one she used when she wanted to look like the victim. Mom jumped in immediately. David, what is wrong with you? We came because we care about Emma. Claire stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. Her whole body was shaking. Really? She said. Her voice was low and sharp enough to cut steel. Is that why you were laughing while my daughter was seizing on our living room floor? Vanessa's face flickered. Just for a second. Then she scoffed. I wasn't laughing. I was in shock. Claire actually took a step toward her. I'd never seen that look on my wife's face before. Pure rage. Before she could say anything else, the treatment room doors opened. A doctor stepped out. Mid-50s, serious expression, exhausted eyes. He walked straight toward us. Your daughter is stable. Claire sagged with relief. The doctor continued. She experienced an epileptic seizure. We were able to stop it with medication. We're running imaging and blood work now to determine what triggered it. Epilepsy? I asked. She's never had symptoms. He nodded. That's exactly why we're investigating the bracelet. And that's when I saw it. Vanessa physically stepped backward. Barely noticeable. But enough. Mom's face tightened too. The doctor noticed. His eyes moved to her. And you are. Her posture straightened. I'm her grandmother. He studied her for half a second too long. Then turned back to Claire and me. Quietly, so the others couldn't hear, he said. We've called in a biomedical engineer to examine the device. Hospital legal has also been notified. That sentence landed like a hammer. This wasn't medical curiosity. This was criminal procedure. And suddenly every instinct I'd spent decades sharpening in engineering screamed the same thing. This was deliberate. Hours passed. Then the doctor returned. This time his face was even grimmer. He sat across from us. Your daughter's scans are clear. No structural abnormalities, no tumor, no underlying neurological damage. Claire exhaled sharply. I should have felt relief. Instead, dread settled deeper. The doctor continued. However, her EEG shows abnormal brainwave activity consistent with a photosensitive epileptic event. I leaned forward. What does that mean? He chose his words carefully. It means the seizure was externally induced. Claire's fingers tightened around mine. The doctor looked directly at us. Our biomedical technician examined the bracelet. He paused. There is a concealed microstrobe mechanism embedded inside one of the charms. Neither of us spoke. It emits rapid pulses of light at frequencies medically documented to trigger photosensitive seizures. It activates when the bracelet is moved at a specific angle. The room tilted. For a second I genuinely thought I might black out. Claire whispered, "You're saying someone did this on purpose?" The doctor's expression hardened. This device could not have been manufactured accidentally. Then he said the words I'll never forget. "We've contacted the police." He stood and added quietly, "Investigators are on their way." Then he left. and silence swallowed the room. I looked across the waiting area. Vanessa was scrolling casually through her phone. My mother was flipping through a magazine like she was waiting for a delayed flight. No panic. No grief. No fear. Just patience. Like they were waiting to see whether their plan had worked. That was the moment whatever denial I had left finally died. This wasn't jealousy anymore. This wasn't bitterness. This was intent. The next few hours blurred together. Detectives arrived. Statements were taken. The bracelet was photographed and bagged as evidence. Claire and I were interviewed separately. Then Vanessa and my mother were escorted into separate consultation rooms for questioning. And for the first time all night, Vanessa looked scared. Which told me exactly what I needed to know. Something was about to break. And when it did, I had a feeling everything I thought I knew about my family was about to collapse. Chicago Memorial was chaos when we arrived. Saturday ER traffic. Stretchers everywhere. Nurses shouting updates. Machines beeping nonstop. They rushed Emma through double doors while Claire and I were left in the hallway, completely helpless. Claire was shaking. I took her hand. "She's going to be okay," I said. I didn't believe it. Not even a little. Claire looked at me, her face pale. "That bracelet." Her voice cracked. There was something wrong with it, wasn't there? I looked down at the evidence still clutched in my hand. And for the first time I said it out loud. "Yeah. I think they did this on purpose." And somehow saying it made it real. The first detective to interview me was Officer Ramirez. Late 50s. Weathered face. Calm voice. He reminded me of the foreman I worked under during college construction jobs. The kind of guy who'd seen every possible disaster and never raised his voice because panic solved nothing. He opened his notebook and looked at me. "Walk me through everything." So I did. The way I'd break down a structural failure. Exact sequence. No emotion. Just facts. Emma put the bracelet on at approximately 2:17 p.m. 12 to 15 seconds later, I observed rapid pupil dilation and tremors in both hands. Within seconds, full body rigidity. Convulsions followed immediately after. He wrote everything down carefully. How long did the seizure last? Roughly 3 minutes before paramedics administered medication. His pen paused. "Anything unusual about your sister's behavior before the incident?" I thought back. The questions about the party. The weird smile. The anticipation in her voice. She'd been asking detailed questions for days. Guest list, timing, gifts, all of it. I hesitated. Then when Emma collapsed, she said our perfect little life wasn't so perfect anymore. Ramirez didn't react. Didn't blink. Just wrote. That somehow scared me more than if he'd looked shocked. Because it meant he already knew how bad this was. Hours later, Emma finally woke up. She looked exhausted and confused, her face pale against the hospital pillow. But she was alive. And the second I heard her weakly say, "Dad?" I nearly collapsed. Relief hit so hard it almost hurt. Claire was crying openly by then, clutching Emma's hand. For a little while, nothing else mattered. Not Vanessa. Not my mother. Not the police. Just the fact that my daughter was still here. Later that night, Detective Lawson arrived. She was maybe mid-40s, all business, with the kind of presence that immediately made people sit straighter. She asked to speak with Claire and me privately. We followed her into a small hospital conference room. Claire's voice was raw. "Did they say anything?" Lawson sat across from us and folded her hands. "Your mother-in-law denied everything at first. Claimed it was an ordinary bracelet purchased as a birthday gift." Claire scoffed bitterly. "And Vanessa? She's sticking to the boutique story for now." "For now?" I asked. Lawson gave me a look. "We're already pulling security footage and financial records. If she bought that bracelet from a legitimate retailer, we'll know." Something in her tone told me she already knew the answer. Emma stayed overnight for observation. Claire refused to leave her side. I went home to clean up. Honestly, I don't remember much of that drive. The condo looked surreal when I walked in. Half-eaten cake. Decorations still hanging. Gift wrap scattered across the floor. Emma's birthday banner drooping over the living room like some cruel joke. I just stood there, trying to process how fast life can split into before and after. The next morning, I returned to the hospital. Emma looked much better. Still weak but alert. The doctors confirmed there'd be no lasting neurological damage. That should have been enough. It wasn't, because I still needed answers. I got them that afternoon. Detective Lawson called and asked me to come downtown. "She's talking." That was all she said. Claire stayed with Emma while I drove to the station. A uniformed officer led me to an observation room overlooking an interrogation suite through one-way glass. And there was Vanessa. She looked awful. Mascara smeared. Hair a mess. Her whole carefully curated image had collapsed overnight. Good. 4 years, she carried herself like she was somehow superior to everyone despite living off everyone else's pity. Now she looked exactly like what she was. A cornered coward. The detective across from her was calm. Tell us why you did it. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Then she snapped. You have no idea what it's like. Her voice rose, almost hysterical. Perfect Claire with her perfect marriage and her perfect daughter and her perfect career. She slammed both hands on the table. Do you know what it's like watching someone get everything you were supposed to have? The detective didn't flinch. So you tried to hurt a 14-year-old girl? Vanessa's face twisted. I didn't want to kill her. She was crying now. Art. Ugly, furious sobs. I just wanted to break something they loved. The room went silent. Then she whispered. I wanted Claire to know what it feels like to lose everything. Even through the glass, the hatred in her voice made my skin crawl. The detective pressed on. The bracelet. Vanessa wiped her face. I found a guy online who builds custom electronics. Forums, private groups, whatever. I paid cash. How did you know what would trigger a seizure? She gave a shaky laugh. Google. Like she was proud of herself for figuring it out. Then came the part that somehow hurt even more. And your mother? Vanessa hesitated. For the first time she looked uncertain. Then she said it. She knew. I stopped breathing. The detective leaned forward. She knew exactly what it would do? Vanessa nodded. I told her the whole plan. And her response? Vanessa actually smiled. Cold and ugly. She thought it was funny. The room spun. The detective's voice cut through it. What did she say? Vanessa's smile widened. She said it would teach them a lesson about flaunting their perfect life. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. That woman was my mother. The person who raised me. And she'd signed off on terrorizing my child because she resented the life I'd built. Detective Lawson entered the observation room a few minutes later. Her expression was grim. We're filing charges for aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, criminal conspiracy, and accessory involvement. I stared through the glass at Vanessa. At the woman I'd paid rent for. Bought a car for. Defended for years. And all I felt was emptiness. Lawson looked at me carefully. I've done this for 20 years, she said. I've seen greed. Revenge. Family disputes. She paused. But what your sister did? She shook her head. That's something else. And deep down I knew she was right. Because this wasn't some impulsive act of anger. It was planned. Calculated. Engineered. Just like the device she strapped to my daughter's wrist. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. If she'd planned this once, who knew what else she'd been capable of all these years? Family cases are always the worst. Detective Lawson said it quietly, almost to herself. Then she looked at me and added, I'm sorry you're going through this. I nodded, but honestly I barely heard her. My brain was still trying to reconcile two completely incompatible realities. The woman who taught me how to tie my shoes had apparently helped plan an attack on my daughter. And my sister, the same little girl I used to walk to school when she was scared of crossing the street alone, had tried to weaponize a birthday gift out of pure jealousy. How do you process that? You don't. You compartmentalize. It's what I've always done. You break catastrophe into manageable pieces and deal with each one. So on the drive home I called Marcus. He'd handled our estate planning the year before and was one of those terrifyingly competent attorneys who made chaos feel organized. He answered on the second ring. What happened? I gave him the short version. There was a long pause. Then, Jesus Christ. Not exactly lawyerly. Honestly, I appreciated that. I need advice on restraining orders and a civil suit. Another pause. Then his voice shifted into full professional mode. Clear your morning. Bring every police report, medical record, and witness statement you have. And just like that, we had a plan. That helped. Because if I stopped moving, I'd have to feel what this actually was. And I wasn't ready for that yet. The whole drive, I kept replaying Vanessa's words. I wanted to break what I couldn't have. That kind of hatred doesn't appear overnight. It festers. It grows. And if I'm being honest, part of me wonders if I enabled it. Every check I wrote. Every bill I paid. Every excuse I made for her. Maybe I fed the entitlement until it mutated into something monstrous. People love saying blood is thicker than water. What they never mention is that blood can also carry poison. Monday morning, Claire and I met Marcus at his office downtown. He'd already reviewed everything I'd emailed him. By the time we sat down, he had folders spread neatly across his desk and a legal strategy mapped out like a military operation. "We're pursuing this on 3 fronts," he said. I appreciated that immediately. Structured. Systematic. Exactly how I think. He pointed to the first folder. Criminal prosecution. The district attorney's office is handling that. Second folder. Civil litigation. Medical expenses, emotional distress, punitive damages. Third folder. Permanent restraining orders against both your mother and sister. Claire folded her arms. What kind of criminal sentence are we talking? Marcus adjusted his glasses. For Vanessa? Aggravated assault with intent to cause bodily harm carries 2 to 10 years in Illinois. Add conspiracy, child endangerment, and premeditation. You let that hang. She's likely looking at the higher end. I felt no sympathy. None. And my mother? He hesitated. Accessory charges. Probably 1 to 3 years. I must have reacted because he added quickly. Realistically, given her age and lack of prior record, probation is possible. That hit harder than I expected. Not because I wanted mercy. Because some irrational part of me still wanted consequences severe enough to make this make sense. Claire spoke next. The civil damages? Marcus slid another document toward us. We'll pursue compensation for hospital expenses, trauma counseling, emotional suffering, and punitive damages. He looked directly at me. Given the deliberate attack on a minor, we're potentially talking high 6 figures. I stared at the estimate. Vanessa and my mother didn't have that kind of money. Marcus knew exactly what I was thinking. Which means liens on assets, wage garnishment, frozen accounts. He folded his hands. Financially, this would ruin them. Something cold settled in my chest. And I hate admitting this, but part of me liked hearing that. They tried to destroy the life Claire and I built. The idea of watching theirs collapse felt fair. Maybe that makes me awful. I don't know anymore. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Mostly because the evidence was overwhelming. The bracelet. The medical reports. The biomedical testimony confirming deliberate design. Vanessa's recorded confession. Even her internet searches had been recovered. How to trigger photosensitive seizures. Flash frequency epilepsy response. Custom microstrobe electronics. She'd practically built the prosecution's case herself. Her attorney pushed hard for a plea deal. Reduced charges. Shorter sentence. A chance at rehabilitation. Marcus relayed the offer during a meeting with the DA. I didn't even let him finish. No. He looked at me carefully. This could spare Emma from testifying. That landed. Claire looked at me. I knew what she was thinking. Protect Emma. Move on. Ill. But every time I pictured Vanessa walking free after a few years, I saw Emma convulsing on our living room floor. And my mother smiling. I looked at the DA. I want the maximum. The DA was a sharp woman in her 50s with the kind of eyes that missed nothing. She studied me for a second. Then nodded. I have 3 children. Her voice was flat. If someone did this to one of them, I'd feel exactly the same. 2 weeks later, the preliminary hearing began. Claire and I sat in the courtroom holding hands. Then Vanessa was led in. Orange County Jail jumpsuit. No designer clothes. No perfect makeup. No smug little smile. She looked hollow. Smaller somehow. Like the performance she'd been giving the world for years had finally collapsed. And underneath it was just emptiness. She never looked at us. Not once. Her attorney argued for bail. Claimed she had community ties. No prior criminal record. No flight risk. The prosecutor stood. Calm. Precise. Your Honor, the defendant commissioned a custom electronic device designed specifically to induce a seizure in a 14-year-old child. The courtroom went silent. Then she added. This was not impulsive. It was calculated. Planned. Executed under the guise of a birthday gift. Even the judge looked disturbed. He denied bail immediately. Vanessa's shoulders sagged like something inside her finally snapped. And for the first time since all this started, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No grief. Just emptiness. Because seeing her there, broken and caged, didn't fix anything. It didn't erase what she'd done. It didn't make Emma safer. And it definitely didn't bring back the family I thought I had. If anything, it made one thing painfully clear. That family had probably never existed at all. The judge denied bail. Immediately. No hesitation. Vanessa barely reacted. She just stared straight ahead as the deputies cuffed her and led her out of the courtroom. 8 months earlier, watching her humiliate herself would have felt satisfying. Now, nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. That scared me more than anger ever could. The next day was my mother's hearing. Her attorney tried to sell the court some pathetic story about confusion and misunderstanding. An elderly woman manipulated by her unstable daughter. A grieving grandmother who didn't fully understand the device. The prosecutor dismantled that lie in under 5 minutes. They played Vanessa's recorded confession. The part where she admitted telling Mom exactly what the bracelet would do. The part where she laughed about Mom finding it funny. The courtroom went dead silent. I looked at my mother. For the first time in my life she looked small. Not physically. Morally. Like everything she'd built her identity around had finally been exposed for what it was. Her eyes filled with tears as the judge denied bail. And as deputies escorted her away, all I could think about were the 1,000 smaller betrayals that led us there. Every time she chose Vanessa over me. Every excuse. Every dismissal. Every moment she taught my sister there would never be consequences. She'd chosen her one final time. And this time it cost her everything. It's been 8 months since Emma's birthday. Physically she recovered fast. The doctors confirmed there was no permanent neurological damage. No lasting seizure disorder. No structural abnormalities. By every medical standard she was fine. Psychologically? That took longer. She still sees a therapist twice a month. The first few weeks she couldn't wear jewelry at all. Couldn't even look at bracelets without freezing. She refused to celebrate anything. No parties. No gatherings. No surprises. Watching your child become afraid of joy is its own kind of punishment. And I hated that she had to learn that kind of vigilance at 14. Kids aren't supposed to know family can weaponize love. But Emma's stronger than I ever was at her age. One night, about 3 months after everything happened, she sat beside Claire and me on the couch and said, "I don't think Aunt Vanessa ever loved us." Claire's face crumpled. I didn't know what to say. Emma looked at both of us and shrugged. "It's okay. I know you do." And somehow that hurt more than if she'd cried. The criminal trial moved quickly. Vanessa's lawyer had nothing to work with. The bracelet. The forensic electronics report. Her confession. The search history. The payment records. It was overwhelming. He tried pushing another plea agreement. Reduced sentencing in exchange for remorse. I refused. Maybe that makes me vindictive. Maybe I should have wanted closure instead of punishment. But every time I considered mercy, I saw Emma collapsing on our floor. I remembered Claire screaming her name. And whatever softness I had disappeared. The judge sentenced Vanessa to 6 years. Aggravated assault. Reckless endangerment. Criminal conspiracy. No parole eligibility until she serves most of it. She cried when the sentence was read. Real, ugly crying. I felt nothing. My mother received 3 years probation, mandatory psychiatric evaluation, and strict supervision conditions. The judge looked directly at her when he delivered sentencing. His exact words still echo in my head. As a mother and grandmother, your betrayal of fundamental trust is especially disturbing. I've replayed that line more times than I can count, because it perfectly captured what I couldn't explain. This wasn't just criminal. It was unnatural. Then came the civil judgment. $750,000 against Vanessa. $250,000 against my mother. A full $1 million total. Every cent placed into Emma's college and recovery fund. Neither of them had anywhere near that kind of money. Which was exactly the point. I wanted consequences that would outlive prison. Consequences that followed them for decades. The same way the memory would follow us. The financial collapse was immediate. I cut them off completely. No more rent payments. No emergency transfers. No just this once rescues. Nothing. Mom lost her condo within months. Without my help covering fees, the HOA foreclosed. She sold most of what she owned and moved into subsidized senior housing across town. Vanessa lost her apartment too. Most of her belongings were liquidated for legal costs. And once she's released, 25% of every paycheck she ever earns goes straight toward the judgment. Given the felony record, she'll be lucky to get anything above entry-level work. For someone who built her entire identity around appearances and status, that kind of financial ruin is almost poetic. But money wasn't enough. We weren't risking anything ever again. Marcus secured permanent restraining orders against both of them. They cannot come within 500 feet of our condo. Emma's school. Claire's office. My firm. No calls. No texts. No social media contact. No third-party messages. Nothing. One violation sends Vanessa straight back to prison after release. One violation puts my mother behind bars immediately. I changed every lock. Upgraded our security system. Installed external cameras with live alerts. Not because I'm paranoid. Because I know exactly what people like them are capable of when resentment curdles into obsession. Emma's school has updated photographs and legal notices on file. Only Claire and I can pick her up. No exceptions. Some people think that sounds extreme. Maybe it is. But when you've watched your child collapse because someone handed her a weapon disguised as love, extreme stops meaning much. And even after all of that, the prison sentence, the financial ruin, the restraining orders, I still didn't realize the worst betrayal was waiting for me. Because 2 weeks later, my father finally called. And what he said changed everything. I've never been a paranoid person. I design structures for a living. I trust systems, evidence, logic. But when someone in your own family tries to hurt your child, paranoia stops feeling irrational. It starts feeling responsible. 2 months after sentencing, my mother showed up at our building. The doorman called upstairs. I told him I'd come down. But I didn't invite her up. Not a chance. When I stepped into the lobby, she looked diminished. Smaller than I remembered. Older too. Like the consequences had aged her faster than time ever could. The woman who used to dominate every room now looked like she was trying not to disappear into the marble floor. "David, please," she said. Her voice cracked immediately. "I made a terrible mistake." I said nothing. She took a shaky breath. "I need your help." Of course she did. That was the only reason she'd ever come. "What do you need?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I can't survive on Social Security. And Vanessa needs commissary money. The conditions in there are awful." I laughed. Actually laughed. And the sound surprised even me. Because there was nothing funny about any of this. But hearing her beg for help for the daughter she helped weaponize against mine? That was absurd enough to break something in me. I cut her off. Her face twisted. "She's your sister. And Emma is my daughter. I'm your mother." That one almost got me. Almost. There's something primal about hearing that phrase. Like some deep part of you still wants to obey. But then I pictured Emma seizing on our floor. Claire screaming. Vanessa smiling. And my mother laughing. Whatever bond had once existed died right there. "You should have remembered that before you helped her try to hurt my child." She flinched. "I didn't think." "Exactly." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You watched her collapse and you laughed." Tears spilled down her cheeks. For years, seeing my mother cry would have crushed me. That day? Nothing. Just emptiness. "We're done," I said. "Don't come here again." Then I turned to the doorman. "She is never allowed in this building." He nodded once. Professional. Immediate. I walked back to the elevator without looking behind me. Halfway upstairs, my phone buzzed. "Claire, everything okay?" I stared at the screen for a second. Then typed. "Yeah. Just took out the trash." Claire replied with a single heart. That was enough. That night, after Emma went to bed, Claire and I sat on the balcony overlooking the city. Chicago was quiet for once. Just distant traffic and summer air. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then Claire asked, "Do you ever wonder if we're being too harsh?" Her tone told me she already knew the answer. Still, I thought about it. Really thought about it. Because if I'm honest, part of me still mourns the people I thought they were. The mother I wanted. The sister I defended. The family I kept trying to save long after it was already broken. But grief doesn't erase reality. "They tried to hurt our daughter," I said. "There's no coming back from that." Claire nodded slowly. Then she said something that stuck with me. "I keep thinking about what Vanessa said. About wanting to destroy what she couldn't have." I leaned back in my chair. Some people would rather burn happiness than admit they never built any for themselves. Claire was quiet after that. And honestly, I think we both understood something in that moment. Vanessa didn't attack us because she wanted our life. She attacked us because she couldn't stand proof that life could be built at all. That maybe her failures weren't fate. Maybe they were choices. The weeks after sentencing changed us. I delegated more at work. Started coming home earlier. Friday movie nights became sacred. Claire and Emma started working on art projects together at the dining room table while I made terrible popcorn and pretended not to notice when they mocked my taste in movies. We built something stronger. Something intentional. The kind of family Vanessa spent her whole life resenting because she never understood how it was made. It wasn't luck. It was effort. Love is work. Consistency is work. Showing up every day, even when it's inconvenient, is work. And that's what family actually is. Not blood. Not obligation. Not guilt. Choice. My mother kept trying to contact us for months. through distant cousins, old neighbors, even one of Claire's co-workers. Every time, Marcus documented it and reinforced the restraining order. Eventually the attempt stopped. Maybe she finally understood. Or maybe she just got tired. Either way, silence became its own kind of peace. Life moved forward. Emma is doing incredibly well. Claire got promoted again. I landed the biggest client of my career. Last summer we finally took that Europe trip we'd been postponing for years. Paris, Florence, Prague. The kind of memories that remind you life keeps offering beauty, even after ugliness tries to define it. Sometimes I wonder if Vanessa regrets what she did. Or if she just regrets getting caught. Sometimes I wonder if my mother lies awake thinking about everything she lost. But mostly, I don't think about them at all. A few co-workers have questioned my decision. One told me over lunch, blood is blood. Eventually, you'll have to forgive them. I asked him one question. If someone deliberately put your child in the hospital, would you? He didn't answer. Because there is no answer. People romanticize family because it's comforting. But family should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one. The people who claim to love you most should be the last people you need protection from. Emma still won't wear bracelets. Honestly, I don't blame her. But for her 15th birthday last month, Claire and I gave her a simple silver necklace. Nothing flashy. Nothing complicated. Just something safe. She wears it every day. And every time I see it, I'm reminded what family actually looks like. It looks like trust. It looks like safety. It looks like choosing each other over and over again. Still, sometimes I wonder if cutting them off completely, ruining them financially, and refusing every attempt at reconciliation makes me colder than I want to admit. AITA for destroying my mother and sister's lives after they tried to destroy my daughter's?